Hi, I'm Stephen with AlbertaUrbanGarden.ca. Welcome to my container garden. So I purchased these self-watering containers a number of years ago, and they've been working extremely well for me. It's a great way to start off gardening. If you're not quite sure and you don't want to commit to kind of an in-ground or a raised bed garden, try it out with this. So the basic principle is we have a watering tube that allows us to get the water down, and a shelf, and it sits raised off the bottom so you can have a reservoir underneath there of water, and then these little protrusions allow you to wick water up as the plant needs it, as opposed to watering from the top. So now this kit originally came with a couple of things. The first thing is a cover. Now what you do is you basically cut holes out and plant through that so that it helps with keeping the soil warm, keeping water infiltration down so that it's wicking, not draining. But the problem is they're kind of one-time use. So one of the things that comes with the kit is dolomite, and this is to enhance the soil structure, and an all-purpose fertilizer. So this is an organic 555 in a pelletized form for slow release. So the dolomite gives it some health, and the fertilizer gives it food. Now that food doesn't last all year, so what I typically do is I'll use my compost tea or weak organic fertilizer, and I'll add just a little bit, probably about once a week when I do the rest of the garden. So what you're going to need is a wicking type soil, right? So this is a peat based, or you can do coconut coir based potting soil, and it'll actually wick the water. Some of the heavier wood chip based ones won't actually wick the water, and you'll have a problem keeping it alive. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to wet some of that down, and I'll show you how to actually pack this so that you can get some awesome growth in here. So the first thing you want to do is take some good saturated potting mix and actually compress it into the wicking area. Now this will keep the soil being saturated, will keep it actually in the wicking area instead of just going through the slits, and this will provide kind of that first initial contact between the water in the reservoir and the soil. If you put dry soil in here, sometimes, especially with peat-based stuff, it'll end up rejecting the water, and it'll take a lot longer to get established, and you could get yourself in trouble with the plants. Now I like to put a little base of wet potting soil on all of the holes. That's just to prevent that kind of initial down thrust of potting soil into the reservoir, which is a waste. Now you can buy the dolomite and fertilizer kits from the manufacturer, but for, I think it was, I don't know, $10, I was able to get the 2 containers that you saw earlier, and really that'll last for years. I don't really have to worry about replacing that anytime soon, which is perfect because that saves a little bit of money, and we still get to get the full benefit of a system like this. Now if you have any tips for planting these better, I'm always wanting to hear that, because I just followed the instructions this time that were there and tried to replace the materials that were originally used. So in this little one, we're actually going to plant peppers. We're going to plant 3. 1, 2, 3. These were part of the trial, and I've had great success growing peppers in these. The easiest way to do it is to just flip the pot, because they're in such tall pots, is just to flip the pot and place it gently in there. Now with peppers you can plant them deeper if you want. They're part of the family that will grow roots out of its stem, which is awesome. But in this case I've actually done the pruning to them. Once we ended the rock dust trial, I clipped the tops and forced them to grow side shoots. As you can see, if you don't loosen up the ball when you up pot them, they'll just continue to root in a circle. Okay, so I'm going to leave these as markers, and we just fill it up. Fill up all the cracks. until we get to about 2 centimeters or just under an inch from the top of where these ones are. That's when we're going to add our supplements. Now you don't have to add these, but I'm trying to show you that you can do this by replacing the store-bought stuff with much cheaper stuff, and it's still the same greenhouse that you probably bought your self-watering container from. There's a variety of different types of self-watering containers. I like this one, but it's the first one I found, and I've grown with it for a number of years. I've grown 15-foot tomatoes, and I'll show you the tomatoes in a second. But it works fairly well. You can also build your own for very, very cheap. I haven't had a need to build my own because I've got these two, but if you're just starting out, it's well worth the time investment to learn with, right? So you take your all-purpose fertilizer, and that's just your 555. It's in pelletized form, and just give a light sprinkling. You don't need a whole ton. Oops! If you're going to be feeding this regularly with your organic liquid fertilizer as well, this just kind of gives it that initial oomph, and it provides that food for a long time. It's a pretty slow release type fertilizer. Then just a little bit of soil on top of that. Now in the instructions, I believe it tells you to run a trench of the fertilizer in front of the plants and stuff, but I just choose to sprinkle it around. And then you do the same thing with the dolomite. It's again pelletized, slow release, gentle sprinkling, and you don't need to do much. And that's why this will last for years. The stuff that comes in the kit is a powder form, and it goes much, much quicker than this. Now the key to the earth box is the self-watering container, but also the water retention on top. Now if you're out of the little covers which prevent evaporation on the top, you can simply use a heavy-duty garbage bag, and I will show you that as soon as I am done doing the soil. Now with the soil, you want to make sure that you're mounding it, because this will settle, right? It's a peat-based or it's just a potting mix, right? It will settle, and you don't want it to be concave so it holds water. You want the surface water to run off so that it uses the water from the reservoir. So you just lightly tap. Now I don't usually recommend when you're doing that, but with this one you want to make sure you have positive drainage. So you've got your heavy-duty garbage bag, a couple of little bits of duct tape, which will really help you out. So you line your bag up so that it has a good overlap on all sides. So you line it up, good overlap. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mark the locations of the plants. And that's so that we can cut little holes in the garbage bag to let the plants through, while maintaining as much of a solid surface as possible in the garbage bag. Mark the tape. Now, it doesn't need to stay for long, it just needs to stay long enough. Of course, my fingers are much more sticky. The other thing you want to mark is the water spout. So then, make sure you know roughly where the center is. So it's along this ridge, and then you want to cut out the holes. Now, you don't want them much larger than the plant itself, just so that you don't have to waste a bunch of space. And we very, very carefully ensure that the plant gets through the hole. Without crushing it. Now that you've got the peppers wound through, you want to tape it. And this will keep it on. Now the kits usually come with ones that have elastic on them. Now, obviously this does not have elastic, right? So, it's got a nice lip on this pot, which means you can tape under it and hold it on. One of the best parts about using this duct tape is you can write on it. So, on the left we have our Santa Fe Grand. Each of these containers will have a recommended planting guide for how many you can put in each one. Last year I crammed 4 peppers into this pot and way more into the larger one. They did fairly well. You just sacrifice a little bit on the yield. These containers will dry out fairly quickly in the summer once the roots get really established, so you'll want to make sure that you water at least twice a day. And right now what I'm watering with is a light organic fertilizer, again just because we've transplanted the peppers and they're going to get a little shock, and you just want to fill this. And usually what I do is actually fill it with my hose, but you want to fill this until you see there's an overflow spout, until that spout goes. The first time you fill this, you want to do it twice in one day because this potting mix will just absorb it, and then you want to fill it so that it's got the reservoir. So this larger self-watering container actually comes with the built-in trellis, which is awesome. Now we're gonna have to be a little more careful because I planted these tomatoes too early and they're huge. You'll see they've got just a massive root system and they keep getting tangled with each other. So this trellis is awesome for supporting them and supporting the weight of the fruit. With the nightshade family, you see these little hairs? That means you can actually plant this a little bit deeper and roots will grow out of this, creating a secondary root system or rooting point. So we'll just fill this up and I'll show you how to attach it in here and what we're going to do for the cover on this one. So what I've done is I've slit the garbage bag in half and I will put one half on the front, one half on the back, and we will tape this up. Well, and that's how easy it is to replant these self-watering containers, and you don't even need the kits to do it. It's fairly simple to do, and now you can just enjoy. Keep them watered, keep them happy, and you'll be reaping the benefits for months to come. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it very much. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and a subscribe. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please join us on Google+ and Facebook. Those URLs can be found in the description below. Have a great day.